Hi there, everybody, and thank you so much once again for joining us in this Magnifying Our Impact series about how to make real positive impact in the world. And today I'm speaking to Dr. Graeme Codrington. I've been thinking a lot about this introduction because, often when we have introductions, people say, you've gone over the top or you've said too much. But genuinely, I can't really say enough about Graeme as a person. He's steeped in what I would believe is incredibly strong values, not just for himself, but for his family, his community, and for all of us in the world. Graeme has 5 degrees, university degrees. He's wrote 5 best-selling books. He speaks at 5 different international universities around the world, travels and speaks and inspires us at least 20 international countries every year of his career. He's incredibly humble man, down to earth, amazing family guy. As a friend and a fellow speaker, Graeme's truly inspired me. Over many times I've seen him speak. He's spoken at one of our seminars for our charity, for Giving Africa. And, he's definitely spoken to over 1 million people worldwide, face to face, and countless people have obviously bought his books and his products, and so he's inspired so many millions of us from around the world over the last couple of decades. And so with that, it's great for us to be able to have this time with Graeme this morning and to really understand more. And I just was chatting to Graeme and saying that this is a real challenge for me because I feel that this guy has so much knowledge and has done so much research that to only have this amount of time with him is not nearly enough. But still, we're going to ask the questions, and this is going to be enormously valuable for us. So Graeme, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Craig, and thanks for that introduction. Yeah, I thought it was very ambitious for you to send me a list of 8 or 9 questions where you and I can take 3 hours to talk about nothing, So,
yes.
But this is a nice structure. And thanks so much, Craig. You've always been a fantastic inspiration to me as well with the work that you've done and taking what life has given to you and turning it around to helping others. I think that's what's really connected us. I'm a huge fan of people who have expertise and passion and so on, but I'm a real fan of people who think about others and who put others ahead of themselves. And I think that's what's connected us over the years. Mm-hmm. From my side, I was just very lucky in my 20s to kind of stumble across something that I could do for a living. In other words, people would pay me to do it, that I also loved doing and happened to be good at. And I think that that's a real gift if you find that your life fits into a category where all of those things combine. And I just have an ability, I think, to think differently from the way that other people think. I think in systems and in big picture thinking, and I'm more concerned about the future than the present. And I think people have just found that useful over the years. So I call myself a futurist. That doesn't mean I can predict things. I wish I could. But I suppose if I did, I'd be living on a private island or even a private planet somewhere. No one can predict the future, but I track trends. I'm fascinated in how systems work. I look for patterns and I track trends. And I'm really interested in disruption, in when those patterns stop working and those systems are changed. And that's been my life for 20 years, helping people to try and both understand how systems change and also change the systems where they need changing. And of course, right now, we're recording this in the middle of the COVID crisis. Right now, luckily for me, that little skill set I have is in huge demand as people want to know where are we going and what's happening. And hopefully, and this will be part of our conversation, using this reset moment that we've got at the beginning of 2020 to maybe think about some of the systems that we want to leave in the past. And as we come out of the COVID crisis, build some new systems. So that's what I do for a living. And as I say, I'm really grateful that a few people pay me to do it because I probably don't know how to do anything else. So I'm glad I can make some money doing this.
Oh, that's not true. Everything else you said is. And You have many strings to your bow, whatever you put your mind to. But I think, you know, whether it's luck, I don't think it is luck, because I think 5 international degrees and you've worked bloody hard to get to where you are. And I think one of the things that you said to me a number of months ago, which is massive, is that not only are you a lifelong learner, but there's not a day that goes by in your career where you don't think about us, and you don't think about the future, and you don't think about, you know, how you can create positive impact. And this is why, to me, this is such a valuable interview, is because, you know, my work now is about magnifying impact and scalability, and leveraging our ability to be able to help more people on this planet, and more, you know, for that matter, to protect and rejuvenate ecosystems worldwide. And so, you know, I'm really excited to hear, you know, all of your research and what your view is on how we deal with where we are right now with regards to this pandemic. But also, Graeme, of course, you know, a lot of us are now thinking about the next year or two, and how we can structure our lives in a way that, you know, for me is more gentle on the planet, but also how we balance our need for capitalism and our need for growth internationally with loving ourselves more and looking after the people around us. And for me, re-engaging, if you like, with our sense of community. When you look at your whole career now, what do you think are, say, the 3 biggest things that have made you successful, in inverted commas? What are the 3 strategies or tips or times or moments that you can give us advice on? What are your 3 biggest lessons that have made you successful?
There's so many things that all add up together. I think hard work, never stopping hustling, you know, always focused. My family might not say those are always good things, because you know, I am a bit of a workaholic, and so
yes.
on. All of those things are important. But if I can look beyond those and kind of say, you know, a lot of people are hard workers. You know, if it was only hard work
Yes.
that made you successful, every African woman in Africa would be a billionaire.
Right.
You know, so it's very easy to look back and say, well, it was all my hard work and all my effort. But I don't think it was that. That's important. If I didn't do any of that, I wouldn't be here at all. But if there were some secrets, maybe if there were some things maybe I've done that other people haven't done, I would say the first is, and I do think I was lucky, although maybe I was prepared to ride my luck, is maybe a better way to say it, is that I do something I love doing. I don't just do something I'm good at, but I do something that I love doing. And I think that love of what I do comes across. People find it infectious.
Yes.
People realize I'm not just competent. I'm not just good at what I do. I'm genuinely loving it, enjoying it. And that's really wonderful. So I think that's part of the secret. I love getting out of bed every single morning and look forward to the next day because of what I do for a living. The second thing is I spent lots and lots of time building a big foundation of expertise and competence. I have 5 degrees. I don't tell people about my degrees. I don't put them up on the wall. They're not up here in my study. I have a doctorate of business administration, but I prefer not to use the title, because for me, it wasn't about showing off or accumulating pieces of paper. I basically was going to do the work anyway. And it just happened that a university would help me to get a bit of discipline and give me a piece of paper at the end.
Yes.
But I spent 10 years studying, Craig. So I was 10 years behind my colleagues who were at work, earning lots of money. I was still at university at age 30. But I was doing it deliberately. I was doing it so that I would be confident in myself, that I wasn't making stuff up, that I wasn't just on the edge of my ability to deliver value to people, that I've got this deep pool that I can trust. And that's the third secret, I think, Craig, and that is confidence.
makes so much sense. And as you were talking, I've got another 10 questions in my head, but I just wanted to ask one question, a supplementary question to that, Graeme, is where obviously through your parents and your grandparents, but where do you feel when you got to a place where, because you must have done at times, where you thought this is damn hard, or you're 26 and you're like, wow, what all these guys are earning money and this and that, and I've got to keep going, or and you've just got this quiet determination that is so strong, and it may well come from your faith and different things and your parents and your grandparents, but what do you feel is some advice that you can give us in in building confidence, in keep going when it gets hard? Is there some question you tell yourself, or a vision, or something that you say, I'm doing this for Jane, I'm doing this for the kids, or is there something that keeps you going when it gets damn tough? What do you tell yourself? What happens?
Sure. I suppose I just have a belief that what I am doing really matters.
Okay.
And that firstly is for my family, for my wife, Jane, for my 3 daughters, and then for the various people I would consider family, even
yes,
technically just friends. I don't have a huge friendship circle. I'm an introvert. I don't have a massive network of people I would call friends. But I believe that my contribution to them is paramount. So if the rest of the world is falling apart around me and stuff's going wrong, if my connection with those people is solid, then my foundation is solid.
Yeah.
Second thing is, because maybe of where I came from financially, it's easier for me to remember and realize that money isn't everything. That when there is no money, there is still life.
Yes.
And that, yeah, of course, if you give me more money, I can do more with it. Money won't buy you happiness, but it does allow you to look for it in nicer places.
Yeah.
I'm not saying let's not have money, but I'm not scared when I don't have money.
No.
I'm not scared that everything is now finished, because my relationships are still there.
Yes.
My family is still there.
Yes.
And I'm not saying I'm perfect. If my family ever watches this, they will probably roll their eyes. Good grief, you sound like a saint. Yeah. Because my family have often got to remind me that it is my family. That's the important thing. In 2008, we had just moved to London. There was the financial crash in 2008. We pretty much went close to being bankrupt during that stage. And I was hustling and working hard. And my family had to remind me, hey, Dad, be here too, we're still here, and we'll get through it. So I suppose the answer to the question is, it's the people who love me the most and who I love the most that we go through this stuff together.
Yes.
And we realize again, my family will roll their eyes because it's become a bit of a cliche, but we do say, as long as we've got each other, we can do anything else is manageable.
Yes.
And we've never reached in our lives, we've never reached the point where we haven't had each other.
No.
And so, that gets me through.
So, Graeme, you talk about your family and the community and your friends and your close network, and so many people I'm sure are kindly watching this that look at their work, and one of their biggest challenges, and I've heard it many times, that when you're sitting in a seat of responsibility where you have either inherited a team or created a team yourself, your business or your charity, your social enterprise, your community interest company is all about people. All of this is about people and how you look after other people. So, you've worked with I don't know. I have no idea how many, I mean, thousands of teams. And so what's your advice? You talk about networks. What's your advice to a leader out there who has inherited, if you like, a team, and the team's not working well, or the culture's not quite right, or they're looking to build a team from scratch? What do you think's most important to create a winning culture?
I think two things, and I'm not the best person to answer this question, Craig. I'm not brilliant with teams. We've got a small team in our company, and I've never been the person who's been the one responsible for the team dynamics. But from what I've seen in other teams and what I believe to be true, I think there are probably two things that might not be obvious. There's a lot of obvious stuff you can say, but two things I think from my experience. The first is that the human resources you have in your team, I'm using that phrase specifically, the human resources you have in your team are humans first before they're resources. And I think the best teams I've worked with and the best teams I've worked in have all shown deep care and concern for the person first. And I think, especially, say, during this COVID crisis right now, I think the teams that are doing really well right now are the teams that haven't just focused on how do we maintain productivity when you're working from home. So I think the first thing is to realize that a team is made up of people, and that if you haven't connected with the people in the team, you haven't built a team yet. Unless you want slaves or robots, that's true. The second is probably something, and here I can punt something that two friends of mine developed. I think one of the cleverest things to understanding team dynamics and cultures is a concept called UGRs. And you can go and look at the website ugrs.net, ugrs.net. UGRs are unwritten ground rules. So the unwritten ground rules are the non-formal policies of your group. It's the things that happen around here that everybody knows happens regardless of what's in the rule book. It's the fact that around here, you don't really have to concentrate in meetings, because the real meeting happens after the meeting, if you know what I mean. Around here, the boss only talks to us when something's gone wrong. Around here, customers are a real pain in the neck. These are all the things that are unwritten, probably unsaid, but everybody knows. And within the first week of joining a new team, you know how things work. You know what has to be done and not done in order to fit into the team. And I think that the best teams in the world are the teams that are aware of the unwritten rules and actually take responsibility for improving them, for making them positive and better. Because unwritten ground rules might also include things like, around here we've got each other's back. Around here you never let out, you never hung out to dry. Around here you can make mistakes. Around here your psychological and emotional well-being comes first. So you can literally build positive UGRs into the team. And the amazing thing is, if you all agree that that's how you choose to behave, that will become your culture. And it becomes very affirming and uplifting and developing. And that feeds the first point I was making, which is we become better humans. So for me, the best leaders of teams are not people who try and get more work out of their people. It's leaders who try and get more people out of the work that needs to be done. In other words, they focus on developing, growing, building, sustaining, empowering, and supporting their people, knowing that those sorts of people will get the work done.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And to take that then and look at, what's just come to me with this is that, you've talked about these UGRs and you've talked about, looking after the person. And so if I zoom out from there and I look at the challenges that people have within organizations and cultures and zoom out again, there's a few questions in this interview which to me will give me and everybody else a vital look, I feel, at what's really going on globally. And
Yeah.
so my next question is around that, which is, what do you feel, talk to us, not just this question, but talk to us more about what you feel are our biggest challenges right now and in the future, and how do we overcome these biggest challenges? If I just ask you that and give you a free rein to just chat to us about what's coming up for us, what are our challenges, Graeme, and how do you think we should plan to do our best to overcome these challenges?
Well, look, Craig, I could give you the obvious answers. You know, we're in COVID-19 crisis right now. So if you're watching this from the future, well done, you survived. You know, we then have got the massive climate change issue coming. We can look at poverty and inequality. Wealth inequality, I think, is one of the biggest issues. We've got other diseases. Let's never forget HIV, AIDS, and malaria, and so on. We've got the resource issue. We've got nationalism and racism and xenophobia. We've got violence against women and all the rest. So, you know, there's your list if you want to know what the problems are. But for me, I want to zoom even further out than that and say, why do those problems exist in the first place? And I honestly think, Craig, that the two biggest problems that we have in the world right now are selfishness and bad thinking. And we could create some academic words so that I sound a lot more intelligent by just putting those two things as your answer. But selfishness, which exhibits itself in both communism and capitalism, so I'm not making a political statement one way or the other. It exhibits itself in the UK in both Labour and Conservative parties, in Democrats and Republicans in America. It exhibits itself in rich people and poor people. It exhibits itself in old and young people. But for me, one of the biggest concerns, one of the things that upsets me the most is when people only see the world through their own lens. So it's even, selfishness even has a negative connotation. There are lovely people in the world who are magnificent human beings, who give to charities, who are very concerned about others. But they're only able to process what's going on in the world through their own lived experience. Controversial examples. You know, you can be a conservative person and be very, very against abortion, and you can look down on other people. You even want to criminalize having abortions. I'm thinking the Republicans in the US. Then your wife or your daughter gets raped and is pregnant by a rapist. Now suddenly you're fine with an abortion. Now suddenly you're okay. You can be anti-gay. You can make all sorts of gay jokes to your friends and be very opposed to the LGBTQI community. Then your child comes out as gay. Now suddenly you're the most empathetic person in the world. Now suddenly you understand. But you only understand because it touched you personally. If it doesn't touch you personally, if you are not impacted by poverty, you don't really understand it. If you are not impacted by climate change, if you can still buy all the food you want to, then you'll just keep on eating all the meat you can, and you'll drive your big car because it's not impacting you yet until your skiing holiday is cancelled because they didn't get snow this year. And now suddenly you're a big campaigner for climate change because you can't go on a skiing holiday. And so, you know, I can give, I know I'm being a little bit rude to
it's powerful
people, but you know what, honestly, just a lot of that isn't about people being bad people, Craig. And I know there's a lot of people who feel very offended, saying, oh, but I'm not a bad person. And I've got to get better at speaking to people like that because I don't want people to feel bad. But I struggle with people who can't see the world through other people's eyes. And I think that might be 90% of the world's population. And I think that's a problem. And then linked to that is our inability to process new information. There is an evolutionary thing. Our brains are programmed with confirmation bias. Our brains are desperate to prove us right. Whatever I currently believe, my brain is programmed to find proof that I am right. And that's why right now, at the moment, my head is being done in, Craig, with these conspiracy theories and that COVID was created in a lab by the Illuminati and is spread through 5G towers so that we can all be turned into mind control zombies so that the lizard people can take over the world. And I'm just, no, people, just stop. We need to learn to think. We need to learn to trust the thinking process. And people say, well, what if scientists are wrong? And my point is, scientists love it when you can prove that they're wrong. That is, in fact, science. So I'm not saying stop thinking. I'm not saying stop being critical, but I am saying there is a certain process by which you can evaluate whether something is good or bad, right or wrong, truth or falsehood. And we just seem to have thrown that all out of the window now. And this is the same symptom of, well, it's up to me. It's my opinion. I'm allowed an opinion, aren't I? You're not allowed to stop me having an opinion. And then your opinion in your head turns into facts and truth. And then you build your life around that truth. And you build a world that's not sustainable for all of us to live in. So we need a world where we can live with diversity, where we can live with multiple worldviews, multiple religions, multiple approaches to life, multiple political approaches and economic realities, and find a way to live together as society in that world. If we don't do that, I fear we'll never solve any of our problems. So all of those problems we could have listed, I think are solved when people realize this world doesn't revolve around me. I'm not the most important person on the planet. I'm just one of 7.5 billion people trying to make my way through the world. And if all of us make our way through the world together, all of us will be better off. I truly believe that.
So that's a really powerful answer, Graeme, because that makes a lot of sense to me. What I'm, it's a great answer. I wanted to ask, which opens up another conversation, which is, how do we do that? If we are conditioned, I've studied a little bit of neuroscience and I understand a little bit about how we grow and how neurons learn and how our neuro pathways become developed and how we're creatures of conditioning. And so I understand some of that work. What I'm interested in is, and I believe, I went on a wonderful program with the Academy of Neuroscience in Europe, and they talked to us about how our brains develop and what they can see now happening on brain scans and how conditioned we become. And once we have a thought, it creates a new meaning in our brain that then stays there. But if we condition different thought patterns, we can grow and develop different ways of thinking. But I'm interested, Graeme, in how do you take, which feels like a big leap to me, how do we help people to change their mindset into a place where they can look at the world from a universal view as opposed to a granular one?
I think there are three things, Craig. The first is relationships. We have to help and encourage people to have connections. They don't have to be deep and meaningful lifelong friendships, but connections with people who are not the same as them. And that might be people with different political views, people with different religious views, people with different economic backgrounds. That's why we can't do this at the moment during COVID, and I know not everybody can afford it. But for me, travel is just one of the greatest gifts that we can give our children and ourselves. And if we could give that gift to many, many people in the world, traveling with intent, not just to travel for what I call charity porn, where you go and take photos of poor people and then come home, but travel where you immerse yourself, you eat other people's food, you engage with their language and culture, you see that other people live very different lives. So that's the first thing. The second thing then is diversity, is to recognize that diversity is not a threat. it's a joy. It's a contribution. And that diversity might be just the diversity of genders. You've got a wife and a daughter. I've got 3 daughters. For us as white men, we don't even know what we don't know about the world of women. I remember a few years ago telling my family at breakfast one day, I said, "Oh, I'm so excited about this today. I'm going to the National Association of Secretaries and PAs, and it's 99% women, of course. And I'm going to be in a room with 1,000 women, and I'm so excited. The energy in the room is amazing. When only women are in the room, there's a whole different vibe that goes on, and it's going to be a real privilege for me to be on stage and motivate them. And I'm so excited." And so my family looked at me. So this is a wife and 3 daughters, and they looked at me like I was mental. And I said, "What's wrong?" And they said, "Dad, do you understand that if any of us, so any woman said, my day is going to be spent as the only woman in a room full of men, we would be scared, not excited."
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
And I actually started my presentation at the Secretary's Convention with that statement. And I got a standing ovation in the first 10 seconds. And it kind of had them,
Yes.
I threw my whole presentation out the window, and I went in a completely different direction because I wanted to help them to see the world differently. And I suddenly realized they needed to help me to see the world differently. There's so much I don't know about the world because I'm a white, middle-class, middle-aged white man. I'm the alpha predator of history. And I've got to get into the lives and experiences of other people. And so we've got to be active in our desire for diversity. And that does mean meeting with people who are different to us, reading things we wouldn't read, engaging with that. And then thirdly, Craig, I think it's generosity. I think it's about building into your life a habit of just giving to others. And if you don't have money, you don't have to give money. Probably one of the things that I'm most grateful of growing up in a family that didn't have money is knowing what it feels like to receive help from others, even though it can sometimes be done in a way that belittles you and takes your dignity away. It's still wonderful to receive gifts, even maybe even better from strangers. But you also realize in a poor environment that giving to others is not about money only. In fact, some of the greatest gifts you can give to other people are not financial gifts. They are a gift of time and attention and care and compassion. And something that's hand-drawn and messy, but comes with love, is probably more valuable than anything you can buy at Harrods.
Yeah.
And, so when I say generosity, I'm not just saying opening your checkbook and giving 1% of your income away to charity and then feeling you've been generous. It's about generously giving of yourself and working out which parts of yourself you can give to others. I don't know how you stay selfish if you practice generosity every day.
No.
I just don't think those two things will work together. You might do it badly at the beginning because you will do it in a patronizing way that might actually cause more harm than good. But the people who you give to will correct you and will help you.
Yes.
And the diversity of your experiences. So that's how this flows, these 3 things. The diversity of your experiences and generosity will change you. Not in one day, not in 1 week, not in 1 year, maybe not in a decade, but hopefully in a lifetime. You'll be changed.
Graeme, you've spoke about, you've talked about a number of different people in that, we've talked a lot about society, and you've talked about culture, and we've talked about us as individuals. So you've also talked about the need for us to be multicultural in our approach and just immerse ourselves in different cultures, travel, different languages, different faiths, you know, and that for me, that has just been massive in my life. And when I look at the moments that are shaping me and teaching me how I can be a better person, if you can highlight for us, to give us ideas of where to start and where to look with this in our organizations and in our personal lives. What do you feel are the three environments or the three people or the three cultures, whatever it's been that's inspired you most? What are the three experiences that you feel that you've had in your life that have shaped this way of thinking most, so we can model this? What is there a, you know, I know there's, you know, if I was to ask you all to write down all the books you've read in your life, it would be a hell of a long list. But, you know, what are the three environments or cultures or people, you know, that have helped you to look at the world in this way?
So I think putting yourself in a position where you can engage with poverty, not, as I said, with like charity porn or poverty porn, or, you know, poverty tourism, where you travel to a country where there's townships or slum areas, and you walk through it for an hour taking photographs and telling everybody that they're the real heroes. I don't like that kind of stuff. But if you can engage with an organization or develop a friendship with somebody who is genuinely poor, and then you don't just see that friendship as a one-way relationship where you are giving them resources, but you ask them what they need. You've had this experience, Craig. You've worked in communities before, and I know in the early days, you and I remember a conversation that we had where you'd been quite hurt by going into a poor community where you had a plan for what you wanted to deliver.
Yes.
They pushed you back and they said, we don't want that.
Yes.
And you were kind of saying, no, but you must have it. This is important. And they were saying, well, it's not our priority. And you learned to...
Absolutely.
You were very quick to learn the lesson and respond there. And, you know, in my mind, that gives a poor person dignity because it puts the relationship in their hands. You know, if you're giving something to somebody, have you asked them whether they need it or not? Or is it just your lens that you're using? So you've got to put yourself in a situation where you can have that relationship, either mediated through an organization that does it well, or preferably as directly as possible, where I suppose I'm saying you start to become friends with somebody who is very different to you. I'm using poverty, but it could be religion, it could be whatever, where it's not you coming as the person with the resources and the person who's going to take control of the relationship, but you hand over responsibility to them and allow them to indicate what would be valuable to them and engage with them. I think any experiences you have where you do that, that'll be useful. I think the second thing that you can do is look for your prejudices. Which people don't you like? Which people do you feel uncomfortable with? Is this gay people, LGBTQI people? Is this people of different religions? Is this women who wear burqas? Is this, you know, young people who choose to do different things with recreational drugs? I don't know what your issue is. I'm just listing things. Yeah. But look at all. Probably those are my list of life things I've had to. Some psychologist will say, Graeme, nice projection. Projection of the examples you've chosen there. And I know the gay issue was a huge issue for me. And I've changed my mind on that. And where I'm going, Craig, is the second thing is I think we need to admit to ourselves that our brains are not helping us. Our brains pull prejudices out. Our brains put up walls and barriers and give confirmation biases that we actively need to work against. And you've studied neuroscience, you know this. There's science behind this. There's psychology behind this. There's sociology behind this. There's logic and statistics and everything behind this. Put yourself in a position where you begin to question your prejudices, where you begin to engage with the people you're prejudiced against. If there's a certain country in the world that you really don't like, and you just don't like the people from that country, is that real? So can you try and meet people from that country? Can you read some of the authors from that country? Watch some of their movies? Just break down your own prejudices. I promise it doesn't hurt. Well, it does a little bit, but then it's way better on the other side. It can be painful to confront your prejudices, but I think you need to make it a habit of doing that, and test yourself when you come up against a prejudice. So why is it there, and what can I do about it? And then read, or I suppose these days it's the 2020s already, listen to podcasts and audio books and so on. You don't have to sit with a book in your hand and look at words on a page, but engage with knowledge. Engage with the world around you. Doesn't only have to be nonfiction titles, but even novels that take us into somebody else's world. Just engage with the world around you. I don't know, that feels too simple, Craig, but I mean, that's all I got.
Really, well, it doesn't to me. It's profound to me. And to summarize, there's about 20 things. I won't try and summarize them all, but there's about 20 things I've learned through this interview. And, this is the way I'm trying to train myself to think and be, is to look at things, to zoom up and look at the planet and understand bigger systems, and understand at a micro level, understand generosity more, understand love more, understand that I'm here to learn and grow, and to put myself in a place where other people have had a different life experience, completely different cultural experience to me, to be able to sit with them and be lucky enough to have these resources, whether it's a film or a documentary or book or an audio program or a podcast or a webinar, or I'm lucky enough to get on a plane or a train or a car and go 50 miles down the road and sit with people that live differently to me, who have a different way of interacting on a daily basis than me. And if I'm even luckier to be able to go and sit with a remote community in the Amazon, whatever we can do to recondition ourselves to understand that we are one global community, to me, is what I'm learning from this, and being reminded, in fact, of the importance of that.
And you know what, Craig, just to make sure that we don't sound completely saintly and otherworldly. And
no. Yeah.
For me, I'm giving you idealism. I'm giving you here what I desire to do every day. I have a genuinely real problem with Donald Trump and his supporters, which means 62 million Americans, including family and friends. And I'm struggling with that right now. This is not easy. What we're talking about here is not a simple switch you switch on and then it's fine and you do it forever. I don't understand Republicans right now, and I don't understand people who can look at Donald Trump and think he's a good human being and is worthy of support. I honestly, my brain just melts.
You're struggling with that. Yeah.
And but it's the struggle. It's the struggle that is important. The recognition that that's a problem that is helpful. The easiest way to solve the problem is that he's not president anymore in a few months' time, and then the problem's gone away. But I have to recognize that I haven't solved my problem if he just goes away, and I've got to find a way to reach out. And it's been 2 or 3 years and I haven't found that way yet. But I think if we all try and find the way, we'll build a better world. We won't solve all of the problems. We'll never solve all of the problems, but we can solve some of the problems, and we can give a better world to our children. They can do the same for theirs. And that is, in fact, what I think it means to live life. So That's all we're trying to do. Now, my friend, I've watched you for the last 25 minutes desperately trying to work out how you're going to get this interview back on track, finish in time. We didn't get it back. We've gone well over time. But I hope it's been a good conversation.
Graeme, thank you so much for everything in our interview and in our friendship and in our lives. It's been great talking to you. And thank you for trying to bring me back on time, because I knew this would happen in the most positive way possible. But I really appreciate it. And I very much look forward to speaking soon. Thanks again, Graeme. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.